Is everybody ready to go? All right. Without objection, I'm going to go ahead and open the City Council meeting for January the 6th. It is 7 o'clock. If everybody would please stand for the invocation and Pledge of Allegiance. Reverend Moon, if you'll lead us.
Will you pray with me? God, we come before you today. We give you thanks for all the good things that you give us, things that we take for granted every day. God, we also know the upcoming year, there are things that are going to come that are unexpected. But we know you're there and you're going to walk beside us. I pray that you'll give this council and those who are elected officials in our city or appointed to positions wisdom, discernment, understanding to make the decisions that need to be made to continue to help our city be great. God, we pray that you'll lead the hearts of those who love you, and we give you all the praise and glory for it. We pray it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We could have a roll call, please.
Councilperson White?
Present.
Councilperson Burns?
Here.
Councilperson Harris?
Here.
Councilperson Maples?
Here.
Councilperson Cross?
Here.
Councilperson Owen?
Here.
Councilperson Webb?
Here.
Councilperson Hawkins?
Here.
Councilperson Ellis?
Here.
Let the record reflect all council members present.
We're going to go straight into election of officers. We need to have nominations for council president.
I'll nominate Mr. Owen for council president.
Second. It's a motion and a second. Are there any others? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Present.
8 to 0 to 1. And now, thank you, Mr. Croft. A motion for, or nomination for vice president.
I move to nominate Scotty Maples for vice president.
Second. Motion and multiple seconds for Scotty Maples to be vice president. Are there any others? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes 9-0. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to go straight into meeting minutes. We have minutes from the regular proceedings of December 16th, 2019. Those should be in your packet. We just need a motion to approve those.
Motion approved minutes, December 16th.
The motion, Mr. Maples.
Second.
Second, Mr. Webb. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. We have special minutes from the special meeting on December the 23rd, 2019.
Make a motion approved. Second.
Motion and a second to approve. Any further? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We have special meeting minutes for December 27th, 2019. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion, Mr. Maples.
Second.
Second. Mr. White, I think I heard.
Sure.
Okay. Anything further? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? And to clarify, your present vote is an abstention, correct? Okay. And that's proper.
That is correct.
Okay. Motion passes. All right, we have approval of the agenda.
No changes. I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay. And we have claims to be approved. Ms. Metcalf?
I'm sorry, you didn't vote on the agenda. You had the first and second motion?
I think we did.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We had one voting negative.
Sorry.
Okay, we have civil city claims tonight for $1,141,824.59.
Are there any questions for the controller? And if not, is there a motion?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion and a second for the civil city claims. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Parks claims?
Parks are $136,142.71.
I make a motion.
Motion, Mr. Webb.
Second.
Second, Mr. Hawkins. Anything further? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you. Report of the clerk.
I just wanted to let everybody know that I'm so happy to be working with you all this term and also to inform you and the public that I have appointed Peggy Hardaway. She is my deputy clerk. And also the next meeting, I think you all discussed that later, but it's January 20th is Martin Luther King Day. But I don't know, that Tuesday I will be at a state call meeting. So my attendance is required there and then going into the AIM conference. But there'll be others in the office that'll help you if you all need anything. And I just want to, I think Matt might have sent out an email, but I'm keeping the same deadlines to keep everything smooth as what the department heads and administration's used to. My agenda deadlines for anything you want to sponsor on the agenda is always noon for the Tuesday before our meetings. And then for any resolutions or ordinance is always noon at Wednesday. So agendas noon at Tuesday, resolutions and ordinance are in my office by noon on Wednesday. So we can get everything going for the packet. So that's all I have. Like I said, we're here if we need us. I look forward to working with you all.
Thank you very much. Moving on, there's no unfinished business, new business. We need to appoint our city council attorney. I did send out a resume and cover letter from Mr. Wilder, who has served in the past, and I believe wishes to do so in the future.
We'll be honored to have that opportunity. And sitting next to Les now, they tell me he's not so scared.
So we just need a motion.
I make a motion to approve Larry Wilder as our council attorney.
I'll second it.
Okay, is there anything further? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Wilder.
Thank you all.
Next on the agenda is a list of appointments that came out in the packet. Some of these appointments expired at the end of last year. Some of them terms don't expire. Some folks have decided to come off different boards either voluntarily or early, or just because they've expired and they're ready to do other things. This isn't meant for immediate action, and I think there are some appointments that maybe it would be beneficial to go ahead and make some appointments. I know, like the drainage board, usually each member appoints someone to the drainage board, and they will meet before we meet again. So if anybody knows their appointment to that, we can go ahead and consider those. And the way that's worked, the drainage board is a 9-member board that's appointed by the city council. And traditionally, we've allowed each member to make one appointment, and we've all respected that one member's recommendation. So if anybody has a motion they'd like to make.
I would like to make a motion to keep Richard Eckman as member of the building authority.
I think they're talking about
You
drainage.
talked about what you said, any, didn't you?
Oh,
Sure. I was.
Let me go to the drainage board. Let me get back to the drainage board. I would like to keep James Wright as a member of the drainage authority. He's currently on it, yeah.
Okay. Is that a motion?
I'll second.
Motion and a second from Mr. Ellis to nominate James Wright to the drainage board. Anything further? In favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right.
Make a motion for Tim Franklin for the drainage board.
Tim Franklin to take the District 4 spot.
Second.
Motion and a second for Tim Franklin and place Mr. Maples. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
And I'd like to request that Arthur Gibb, who was my appointment as a 6th District kind of by destiny, moving with me to the at-large district to be my representative on drainage.
Second.
Motion and a second for Mr. Gibb. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve Adam Ross for a 6th District Drainage Board appointment.
Adam Ross.
Yes, second.
Motion and a second for Adam Ross in the 6th District. No, but he's, yeah. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes.
I'd like to make a motion that we retain Steve Gill as an at-large member of the Drainage Board.
A second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And I believe that's, takes care of everybody,
To District 2.
District 2. Oh, yes.
Did we get one?
Mine hasn't expired.
His hasn't expired yet.
I'm not prepared tonight.
You're not prepared tonight?
No.
Okay, we'll come back to that next meeting, no problem. We can go down the list, or we can hold till the next meeting so everybody has a chance to look over the others. I know that the others aren't as pertinent to get reappointed right away.
No, we're just missing this.
Yes, correct. Thank you. The Planning Commission meets at the end of the month. But, I mean, those are council appointments, we can go ahead and make those.
Nominate myself for Plan Commission.
Mr. Burns, we have 3 appointments on the Planning Commission that are council members. I know that,
Well, it's not, the planning commission, they have to be council people.
as I understand, yes.
Right, yes, correct.
So they would, we have Maples and White that expired at the end of the year. I know Mr. Burns, Mr. Paris, Mr. Webb, Mr. White, you've expressed interest in staying, so
I move to appoint Mr. Paris and Mr. Webb to the Planning Commission.
okay, with Mr. Burns?
Yes,
Okay.
in addition.
So can we,
Yeah, I think you're fine.
So, wait a minute, let me understand. Bill, Joe, and Steve, you 3 want to be on planning, is that correct? Okay, because I didn't know if we wanted to
Don't talk
do
too
a
much,
trick
Mr.
here. I
Hart.
wanted to make sure. Don't talk too much.
Are you wanting to have the floor, sir? Come on,
there's a motion and a second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we got those 3. The parks, so the parks, I had an oversight. I'll admit that we have one appointment on here, which is the council member, which has been me in the past, but we also have 3 additional appointments. It's a 9-member board with 4 coming from this body. 1 has to be a council member. But we only have the 1 on the list, so I'm happy to nominate somebody to take my spot on parks, but maybe we should wait till the next meeting to fill the other 2.
If I can interject, Mr. Owen, actually, the council can appoint all of its appointments as members of the council.
We could, yes.
Could, so I don't know if you're trying to get off that, or whether you just, because your statement was, replace you.
Yeah, well, yes.
So we need at least one of us,
At least
plus
one,
3 others.
plus
Right.
3 others, and
Who do we, but we don't have a list of who the other 3 are.
Currently. And I have not spoken, I think in my head I know who those 3 are, but I have not spoken with them to know if they'd like to stay or be replaced, or if we even, I don't want to, because this list came out with only 1 spot on it, I'd rather just replace the 1 spot, because I don't want anybody to feel like they weren't given an opportunity to come up with a name or ask somebody to serve. So I would nominate Mr. Ellis, who's been on with us.
No.
No.
I do not want to be.
Okay.
Lyndon Johnson.
That shall not serve.
I will not serve.
Nominate Mr. Paris.
How much time does it take?
1 meeting a month.
Yeah, I did
More
get-
than they tell you.
Was that a volunteering, was somebody volunteering over here?
How about I consider it?
I'm sorry.
I'll consider it, but let me think about it.
Okay. Well, we can hold till next meeting on all four. 'Cause it's, they won't meet until the end of the month. They meet on the fourth Monday of the month, so.
I think that's fair to Joe.
I'm sorry.
That's fair to Joe.
Yeah, I agree. Put me on the spot. All right. Yes. Ed Zastani is the council person who is appointed to Public Art. It's always been a council person in that role.
I've expressed interest in it.
Mr. Maples has expressed interest. I don't know if anybody else has or not.
I make a motion that we give Scotty Maples
You have to?
Yes, but I'm,
position on the Arts Board.
Second.
There's a motion and a second for Mr. Maples to go on the Arts Commission in place of Mr. Zastani. Any other further?
Bill said he may have an interest of being on the board. Do we have 2 appointments to the
We have
board?
3.
3?
We have, we do, and I believe
Mr.
the
Norman.
other 2 have expressed through Andy Crouch that they're okay with letting somebody else step up. So I have not personally spoken with either of them, but one is Deb Henderson and one is Paul Northam, and that was Andy's message to me. I think John McCarthy is our, and Rosie McCallahan are both ours, but they don't expire until 20 and 21.
Well, we could ask Deb Henderson, she's in
Ms. Henderson,
Hello.
you were slated to come off at the end of the year, and I was informed that you were okay with coming off or with Mr. Northam.
I'm fighting it tooth and nail, but they offered me huge amounts of money. Turn off the recorder. Yeah, I'm ready to give somebody else a chance. It's a wonderful opportunity.
Okay. Okay.
Did anybody talk to Northern?
He did. He expressed through Andy again that he was ready to take a step back.
I have a suggestion. Whether we vote on it tonight is up to the council. Tia Williams-Hampton would be interested in serving on the Arts Commission.
What was the name?
Tia, T-E-A-H, Williams-Hampton.
second.
Was there a motion for you, Bill?
I don't believe there was ever a motion made.
Okay.
I have.
Did you just make a motion?
I have Scotty and Tia
Bill.
and Bill.
Well, there's not a motion on that, but I don't know if that's going to be unanimous, then okay, but I don't want, if people don't want me to be on there, then we vote it down because of the other 2, so. You have right at it. Hope everybody else wants something. All right. Somebody needs to make a motion for all 3 then.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to have Scotty Maples replace Ed Zastani, Tia Williams-Hampton replace Deb Henderson, and Bill Burns to replace Paul Northam on the Arts Commission. Any further? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Redevelopment is next. Mr. Hawkins and myself did express our desire to stay on that board. If you'll have us.
Make a motion for that, Owen and Scott Hawkins. stay on
Second.
redevelopment.
Motion and a second for Matt Owen, Scott Hawkins to retain. Anything further? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Bill Sagasser and Dale Orem, I have not spoken to those guys on the sewer board, but I know that they have served diligently for many, many years, and I don't believe there's a desire for a change.
I would advise not making a change at this time.
I'll make a motion to retain those.
There's a lot of parts in motion.
I second the motion.
There's a motion by Mr. Burns and a second Mr. Croft to retain Mr. Sagasser and Mr. Orem on the sewer board. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. I said we weren't going to do all these tonight, and here we go.
Got the 2 at the top.
Uh-huh.
Building authority.
Yes. Building authority, all expired at the end of the year.
A couple of these, though, like with the building authority, I mean, we can do what we want to do, but I have somebody that I think would be a good fit with that, but I haven't talked to any of these people about maybe who would want to go off. I mean, it's not like this is a crucial, it's not like they're just chomping at the bit, but there would be somebody that was good. So, I mean, if possible, I'd like to just hold off on at least this one, because I'd like for like a conversation to be had about who's going to be on there and who's not going to be on there. And I don't know, I haven't talked to any of these people, so.
I agree.
Can we see to it to wait on
I mean,
that?
table is something you take action on.
Yeah, just-
Okay. That leaves UEZ.
I move that we retain Peggy Hardaway as a member of the UEZ board.
And the motion was made, each of these appointments are for specific positions. So I believe Ms. Hardaway is the representative of a resident who is a Democrat, correct?
Correct.
And Ms. Garner is a representative of a resident who is a Republican. It's mentioned here that Natalie Carden is the business representative, and it has Dustin White on here, which I think should read Ron Ellis as the council person. So we just have to consider those facts when we appoint those members. Has to be a resident of opposite parties, a business owner, and a council person.
And to determine the political affiliation, most recent
Voting.
primary voting.
Yes.
Has anybody, those, I know Ron, do you want to be on there as well?
Continue the council will have me.
I know Stephanie Garner has expressed a willingness to stay. I have not spoken with Natalie Carden, which is crazy because I see her all the time, and I just haven't thought about it. But I know there are others who have expressed interest also.
Can we pass on that until, when's the next meeting though? Wednesday?
Yeah, but that may be moved because of the mayor.
Wednesday, I can, hopefully,
You won't have a quorum.
well, I think if you don't make an appointment, we may not have a quorum, so I can always reschedule it if we need to.
Has the administration made all of their appointments?
Yeah.
Okay. And that kind of hems it up too. So that may be another one we need to, there was a motion. Mr. Ellis did make a motion. That didn't, was there a second?
I'll second for Peggy.
There's a motion and a second for Ms. Hardaway to be the resident representative who is a registered Democrat, primary history. Anything further?
I know that there are a number of people that are interested in serving on the UEZ. I think it's best at this time, from my perspective, if we waited until our next council meeting to make any appointments to that board.
I've got a motion on the floor.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Only under preference
And
that
just because,
every other person that's asked
honestly,
for
my
it
intention will
falls.
be to
Yeah.
vote, but we did do, you guys delayed voting for building authority, that's the only reason why.
Yeah, it's
There's
not-
nothing wrong with any of those people, I just.
If any
pushed
council
off the
member
other,
said, let's
pushed
stop
off this.
on, take some time, we've agreed to that and haven't forced the motion through, so I thought it based on that.
So Ms. Gill, did you get the vote?
So the motion fails
Everybody.
7-2. 2 to 7, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Let's do the later.
Okay. We will revisit those at our next meeting. Ms. Gill, if you'll put that on for old business.
Is there a second page?
There is a second page?
Yeah, there's a second page,
Oh.
and so
Oh,
I'm,
I
so I'm,
Excuse me.
same thing. So you've got the Parks Authority to address at the next meeting,
Yes.
the JUDA to address at the next meeting, and the Building Authority, correct?
Yes, and we have a couple of more
And there's a back page.
that I neglected.
District 2 drainage potential.
Yes, thank you.
On the second page, we have the Finance Committee. That's a committee of council members, typically the council president and 2 or 3 others that like to volunteer from the council. That's
I will be taken off.
you would like to be taken off? Okay. all expired at the end of the year, so would anybody like to volunteer for the Finance Committee? If not, I'll just start picking names.
Motion from Matt Owen.
Second.
Third.
Well, because it's typically the president and 2 others.
Right, so let's get the others. Mr. Paris?
I have interest in it, but if I'm going to do the parks and that, I mean, I think I'll do one or the other.
That is not a super active position. It meets as needed, not on any regular basis.
I'll be on there as well. I'll be finance.
Okay?
I'll make a motion to nominate Scott Hawkins, Matt, and Joe.
Second.
Motion and a second. Anything further? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right.
And that can have a fourth person if somebody else is interested, right?
Yes. Yes, yeah, anybody else
Just
could
for a
attend.
new member.
Sure.
Councilperson Owen,
Yes, ma'am.
we didn't get those, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's Owen.
We had a
Hawkins.
sidebar with it.
Owen, Hawkins, and Paris.
Thank you.
No problem. Clark County 911, this is for the fiscal board. Ms. Gill was our representative. She expired at the end of the year. This is an annual appointment, and I would nominate Mr. Burns.
I'll make that motion.
How often do they meet?
Second.
Once every, no, once
Oh,
a week.
weekly.
Every other month, first Wednesday at 3 p.m. Is that still what it is, Lisa? Yeah. 6
So-
times a year.
A motion and a second for Mr. Burns for Clark County 911. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Mr. Burns it is. And then Fire Merit Board, there's so many notes.
So,
Mr. Smith has been appointed. I don't know when his term expires. It says 2022, I think.
right.
So that is a moot point. Dave Stimson expired at the end of last year for zoning, and I don't know if he had intentions of staying or not.
And I might ask you a question about Jeff Fry. You indicate that he expired, that he's no longer on. Who did the board?
He didn't expire. He did.
Who did you all appoint?
Sam
Sam
Smith
Smith.
Okay, so that's why they're on there
twice.
twice.
Right.
That's perfect.
Um,
Mr. Merkley and I were.
I can make a call to Mr. Stinson. I did not, but to see if he would like
Reach
to
out to him again.
retain.
Okay. We'll leave him for next meeting as well. Any further? Good deal.
Are we, what you said about zoning?
We're going to wait for checks. Reach out to him. All right. Reverend Moon. Sorry for the delay.
Good evening. Glad to be here to talk with you a little bit about what's going on with the shelter. I have a handout for you, but before I do so, one of the things that I've met with several council people already, and some of the council people that have went off of the City Council of Jeffersonville. I want you to know that one of the reasons why Park Memorial is investing in the shelter, along with, some of you probably know this already, but with community action and with the township trustee, we're investing in Jeffersonville. That's why we're doing it. We're doing this as a service to the city of Jeffersonville. We want, and actually, it's really a service to the southern Indiana. It's not just to Jeffersonville. We care about the people that, as far as church is concerned, we care about the people that I believe are the least of these, the people that are falling off of many of the plates that most people don't want to talk about that actually do exist in our area. I have some statistics to pass out to you. These are the current ones, and I actually have enough for everybody. I don't know who, you don't have enough for everybody. Even you two over here, I'm going to take some. I want to just give you a snapshot of what we're dealing with as far as sheltering of human beings in the city of Jeffersonville. One of the things that we addressed first when we took over the shelter is safety concerns. Right now, we have put in almost a $27,000 camera system. What that does for us is I can see someone's eye color about 3 blocks away if I need to. One of those cameras alone is about $3,500, and it's sitting there, and you can pretty much, as far as safety as a Claysburg neighborhood, we can tell almost everything that happens within a 3-block radius around the shelter. As far as the second piece of safety is, previous to us purchasing the shelter, it is only, the fire system happened to be the smoke detectors with batteries that you buy any place you can get them. Actually, Hawkeye Security is putting in an inline electric strobe fire system in the shelter to be able to help if a fire were to be able to break out. We have a sprinkler system, but we're addressing all safety concerns. We actually checked off all those boxes. We're moving on right now to infrastructure, which is basically going room to room and gutting every piece of that property, trying to rid it of pests and other unsightly beings, and working through every client that we see there, and actually asking people who are in active addiction to go into treatment. If they're not in treatment, then they can't be at the shelter right now. We've moved our policies and switched things around to actually address some active addictive people that were in the shelter. The reason we've kind of changed policy a little bit on that is our shelter right now has 8 children under the age of 10 years old. It shows 6 there, but 2 came. This is on the 2nd of January. Today's the 6th. I want to point a couple things out to you. I'm not going to belabor the cause, but some of the things that people say in the community a lot, they'll say that people are living at that shelter exhaustively for a long time. The statistics prove that that is not the case. The statistics say that 76% of the people have lived there less than a year. The people that have lived there more than a year, which if you look on into the statistics, you'll see where the chronically mentally ill people are ending up in southern Indiana is at that shelter. The people that cannot get into group homes, do not fit into Jeff Housing Authority, New Albany Housing Authority's criteria, they are currently at that shelter, and they'll be there as long as I'm there until we can find group homes and so on and so forth for those folks. And you can see it's glaring in the statistics why those people are there. We're working with them individually, but it takes time to get them into the proper placements. Another thing that people say all the time is that, you know, we're taking on Louisville's problem. We've switched gears on our policies as far as Louisville's concerned. If you're an able-bodied person and you end up in the shelter and you're from Louisville, we take you back across the bridge to the shelters there. They do have facilities there, and there's no reason for people to be there. Now, why I say able-bodied, and I've said this to a few people, when a little granny who is 60-plus years old comes, who's infirmed, I'm not going to take them to the wolves in Louisville. I mean, that's just, you know, it's part of how we're processing people. But you'll see a majority of the people are from southern Indiana. 74% of the people that are in the shelter are from southern Indiana. 19% are from Kentucky. About 7 to 8% are from other cities across America, really. You can see them for yourselves. We cross-referenced a couple things, but the biggest thing you have to know as a city council is that we've done away with the domestic violence shelter for women in New Albany. And right now, by self-reporting, 53% of all women at the shelter claim to be victims of domestic violence. And we just took actually the family that came in yesterday is a woman who's a victim of domestic violence, and they are from Jeffersonville. They bring them to the shelter to be case managed, and that's another thing that's a little different, but we hired a full-time case manager. We contracted with Community Action of Southern Indiana. We have a full-time case manager that happens to be my wife. It's the only crazy woman that I could figure to actually take on that role right now, because it's a real uphill battle, as you can probably understand. And so you'll notice another thing that people say is people at the shelter don't work. The fact of the matter is a lot of people that live at the shelter are people that are on SSI disability, and they can't get into places in there. Most of those folks are the ones that are mentally ill, have SSI disability, and need somebody to advocate for them, and actually have a payee, which we're not going to be involved in that part of it, but getting them a payee so they can pay their bills on time and do the things that they need to do. You can see that 56% of people at the shelter have income of some kind. It's kind of crazy, but you look at the number, 17 have full-time, 13% have full-time jobs. And now you ask yourself questions, well, why are they there? Evictions, that's why they're there. Evictions is how they end up there and have full-time jobs. There's a guy there that's making $3,600 a month, and because of past evictions and some trouble he had, he can't get into places right now. But we're working with him. But it takes time to get past those evictions, get people paid off so they can get to where they need to be. By self-reporting, 51% of the people there say that they are mentally ill. And I cross-check that with asking where they get treatment. You'll see about 10% of the people who say that they're mentally ill aren't getting treatment anywhere. And those are the people I'm letting you know that are the most chronic mental ill people that don't get treatment because they're so far past what I would think the norm of society is that they can't keep in treatment without someone making them be in treatment. Felonies, you can see that. The addictions, you can see that. There's people there that are addicted, there's people that are felons, and there's people there that are domestically battered. There are people there that are mentally ill. Why am I here today? I want to urge the city of Jeffersonville, and I'm going to New Albany and Clarksville, to begin to treat the sheltering of human beings like an infrastructure issue and not just something that is pushed off to the edge for someone else to take care of. One of the reasons I got into this, and I'm not taking $1, and I will never. I'm doing this as a service to Southern Indiana, not to myself. But the reason I got involved in it is to make sure that the sheltering of human beings in our city is done the right way. And I have literally worked my tail off to start that ball moving the right direction. It's going to take the municipalities to help partially fund the shelter. There's no way you can do this completely on the dollars from the state or grant monies. It's going to be very, very difficult to make that happen. I would like to see the city of Jeffersonville begin by funding that shelter at a level of $50,000 a year to help us get this shelter to where it needs to be. Why am I asking for that amount? I think it's fair. It will represent about half of the budget of the shelter. It costs around $310,000 to run the shelter, and that is on a bare bones budget. If you try to feed, house, bathe 100 plus people 365 days a year for $310,000, it's not an easy task to do it in. But let me flip it around one more time. Last year, I spent all day today counting the number of unduplicated people that came through the shelter. 2,370. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of folks that find their first place at that shelter. They come through the doors, and that doesn't count the folks that just stop in, and we're going to begin to count those too, who just stop in to take a shower, to get some toiletry items, and then they leave. This counts just the people that checked in and did an intake into the shelter. Right now, if you leave Clark County Jail, Floyd County Jail, you come to the shelter. There's the interesting thing to me, which is something I had not been prepared for, is that if people leave Pendleton, Plainfield, Branchville, Wabash correctional facilities, they will try to bust them here. That's something I wasn't prepared for, but it is happening because most of the shelters that are north of I-70 are full or won't work with certain classifications of inmates. So we're working on that one. I don't want to turn away people that are good people, but at the same time, we're busing a lot of people into our city from all over the state of Indiana that are coming out of jail. And I'm willing to work with some of those folks, but we're doing that as, like I said, on a as needed per case basis, not as we're going to take everybody that comes. Obviously, we don't take sex offenders. Every other case, we actually have to have the case notes and look at them ourselves before we give the thumbs up of taking someone into the shelter and beginning to work with them. So that's my request. I would like you to see this as an infrastructure thing, as something that if you're a bedroom community of Louisville, it's a necessity. It's going to always be a necessity. And I want you to know that if you decide to do this, that the first call that you can make, and I've talked to Mayor Moore about this too, if there is a homeless encampment, there is a homeless need in our community, you can call and we will be on it within 24 hours. We want to be the place where people, if you see someone on the stoop and alleyway, that we can try to get them that first step of help. This shelter is not just going to be an emergency shelter any longer, but it's going to be a shelter where you have emergency shelter plus a program. And the program will be to help rehabilitate some folks to get them into housing permanency long term. It'll always be an emergency shelter where someone can come lay their head if they're not in active addiction. But there's also a program that goes with it that we can help some of these people plug and chug and do the things they need to do to get them back as contributing citizens of Jeffersonville. Questions?
Did I hear you say that you do not accept people if they are in active rehab?
If they're in rehab, yes. In active addiction, no. What we've asked people do, the policies changes sound something like this. I've told everybody that lives at the shelter that if they're in active addiction and we see them in active addiction and we call them on it and we give them a drug test, the only answer to that is get me help. If there's any other answer, they're just gone. We're not going to have conversations about how they got in their system and all that. We're just, if you're in active addiction, if you want treatment, we'll get you a bed somewhere. The greatest thing that we've done is I think the first week we got 6 people into beds who were in active addiction that were in the shelter in the first week. And they're at Healing Place, they're at Turning Point. But getting these people and identifying, and that we got a partner, her name is Jackie Bohannon, but I actually met her at Kanzai. She's a lady that we would eat with, and she's been giving us 12-panel drug screens at really, really reduced cost. We've went through almost 70 of them since October because we're really working through, if we feel like people are in active addiction, to make sure they're honest and telling us the right things. And we went out and actually had to buy some Suboxone panels too because they're not on the 12 panel, and that's something that is really big right now, and also Spice. But we got those extras so that if we think they're on those things, we can also go a little bit further if we need to. But we do take people in active addiction. If they come back with that detox certificate, they take them right back into the shelter.
Jim, how many people do you currently have?
Right now we have 93. And when you had this was 127, but you're talking about the difference. This was done on a day when if you have white flag, you have a ton more people coming into your shelter than if on a normal day. But we've got some people placed in HM Fine up here on Spring Street. Darnell just opened up the housing authority in Jeffersonville today at 9. I had 8 people there filling out applications, and we were in line at 8:45. I mean, we're trying to get some people that we believe that can plug and chug and do the things they need to do into those things. But I got to tell you, I'm also not passing around people to Darnell or to David Duggins in New Albany that we know that won't succeed. That doesn't make sense. We've created a matrix, that basically classifies homeless people on several different factors and gives them a score. And that score helps us determine who we work with case management, and we're working down the list. The first people we started with are the infirmed, and also the aged, which most of that's together. And people with children under the age of 6 have got case management first. And then we're working our way down with people who have full-time jobs. Obviously, you're going to pour some more attention in there because it'd be easier to get them into permanent housing than some of the other folks. And we're just working down the list as we move along.
When you say white flag, for those who may not know what that means.
White flag is actually, it's any temperature. If it's 34 degrees or under, then white flag is out. There is a white flag shelter right now that is in New Albany. It is very difficult for the folks that most of the folks live far away from that area, but we've actually begun to bus some people there from the shelter here to utilize that and not just have an overflow crowd of everywhere laying all over the place at our shelter. We've just created a bus service to get there so that we can kind of manage some of those numbers because it gets to be pretty heavy.
Jim, you mentioned, I'm sorry, Reverend, you mentioned
Jim.
that you would like to see $50,000 from the city of Jeffersonville, and that you would be going to the other municipalities. How does that break down to fill that $310,000?
I'm actually going to ask the other municipalities for more, thanks to Mr. Hawkins, because we're the ones taking the brunt of we have that shelter in our city, and we're taking ownership and responsibility for that shelter. And the last call that I got, was from New Albany, which is fine. And Mayor Gahan and actually David Duggins has been just awesome. But actually, Mayor Moore has offered to get a meeting together of Mayor Gahan and whoever is going to be elected to the city council or town council of Clarksville's president, and have a conversation about some of these things together as a group. Because it really needs to be some people, all of us need to have investment in making sure, because we all represent districts, and those districts have people when they call and there's a homeless person in their stupid alleyway, who do we call? How do we get that person addressed? And I'm going to be the first person to tell you that I'm not going to be able to address every homeless person's issues. Because if they're an active addiction or if there's some other violence, if they're a dangerous criminal and things like this, then I have kept them away from our shelter just because we have kids. I'm not going to put that kind of risk next to a child. And I'm working very, very hard to get those kids out of there into places. You just got to know. My wife and I are killing ourselves trying to get them out. But as long as we have children, we always are going to be open to have children. We can't have those folks there if they're an active addiction or if I classify them as a dangerous criminal. And I'm not going to go into how I do that, but we do have a way to say this person's over, they've done too much to be here.
Well, and a couple, if I could, not just Jim, but everybody, last year, if you weren't on the council, Nathan Samuels kind of came up with this idea, and we budgeted $50,000 in this year's budget to go to anybody who brought a program to combat homelessness. We didn't know what those programs were going to be yet. I hadn't met Jim yet. We had a great meeting. If you hadn't had a chance to do that, I recommend you go sit down and go through this with you. And Mr. Samuel said, let's just set aside $50,000. Whoever comes up with a great program, we'll fund the program. It ain't we aren't going to solve this sitting at this desk. People like him are going to solve this issue here. So I thought that was pretty good. So we voted that. So we do have the money already in the budget for this ask. Now another thing, a couple comments I'm going to say here to be on your side.
That's all.
I did tell him. I said, you know, if we're going to put in 50, these other places need to put in more. Because we are the ones that are going to be, like the housing that has value there. And if we're the ones supporting that value with all the excrement around it, they need to be paying more. So I'll be more than happy to go to these meetings with you to push the point. And you may not recall Callie Yon, who's no longer with us. I forget what her job was, but she went to some meeting that told you what the cost was to your local economy for every homeless person. They did an analysis. And if somebody can remember the number, I think it was $59,000 a year will be the cost to the local economy for every person you have on the street. So whether or not you approach this with just your heart, or if you don't have a heart and just your brain, this is something that needs to be absolutely 100% addressed because it's affecting both ends of that. So I have become so much, because of our meeting, I went out and I've done my best to educate myself. And anybody that wants to meet and talk about this, I'd recommend you talk with Jim. So I will be I don't need to hear more. I understand if other people will, but I'll be 100% for giving the $50,000 that we've already set aside for this project. And I'll go, I don't know, be scary and big looking. I don't know. When you have this meeting with these other mayors, I can just stand in the doorway if that helps. I don't know what you need.
I'll do something followed up with that that's kind of important to piggyback on that. Dr. Yazel, he's over the Clark Memorial Emergency Room. Him and I have a great relationship. And if you know part of that 59,000 they come up with, there's different numbers floating around, but they're all somewhere between about 50 and 80 is where your movement on a homeless person on your street, how much it's costing your city in terms of, and I got Scotty Maples looking at me, but the revolving door, the biggest homeless shelter you have right now is the Clark County Jail. Just so you know, the second one happens to be the Catalyst Rescue Mission. The third thing I'll tell you, though, that I think is also a follow-up and important to that, is that Dr. Yazel and I are talking, the flow and flux of people into the Clark County Memorial Emergency Room is insane. It's insane. And what we've been able to do, which I know I can tell you I'm already saving taxpayers' money. I know why. We have doctors that are volunteering their time to see some of these folks on an as-needed basis. Dr. Mike Bonicum is one of them, and we have 2 nurse practitioners that are able to see people, and they're cutting off some of those overflow of people. Like December 31st, it was insane in there. We saw Dr. Mike Bonicum came to the shelter, saw about 6 people that would have been sitting there. I mean, we're already doing the work to get people. Hopefully, we're also doing some of the work in mentoring some of these folks so they don't end up in the biggest homeless shelter that we have in Jeffersonville. We sent a guy, and this is a great partnership, a guy who came out of Plainfield Correctional Facility. His name is Gary. He busted his butt at the shelter. Every time you needed something was there. We connected him with a local business owner. He called me. They're up near Lake Michigan on a job. Called me and said, "This guy's the best worker I've ever had." And I mean, I'm not saying it can be long-term, but we're talking right now about 4 weeks. But we're talking about connecting partnerships in the city of Jeffersonville to get some of these people the opportunities they need to succeed. Now, I can't make them succeed, but I can get them there. That's what we're hoping to do with some of this.
I did not support the $50,000 vote, if I remember right, when we earmarked that money. And that was,
The resolution.
the resolution was because it was scary to me that we were saying, here's $50,000, come get it, to anybody. That was the notion that I took, and that's why I voted against that. I think there were several others that may have voted against it. And with that being said, I didn't like the idea when you throw money out there, somebody and say, come get it, there's going to be people that are going to take you up on that. And then this came about, and I met with you and really liked some of your ideas. And so I would echo Scott's comments about this money going toward there, because I didn't like the idea that there's just money out there and you could come up with a plan and words are words and actions are actions. And I took the time to meet with Pastor Moon and, like he said, be in close relationship with the Clark County Jail and then the Catalyst Rescue
Mission.
We operate similarly, and you have to in these settings when you intake people and how you know, the processing, and he had a really good plan in place that I saw. So with me being scared with just throwing money at a problem and it not going to good use, I feel that this is the good use. It was refreshing to sit down with you and see the plan you had. There is a hardline approach to dealing with homeless sometimes. If you're
I hate that, but we have to.
you got
I had to
kids.
tell a lady who is, this is, you know, I'm just really partial to older ladies. And not for a weird way, but just if they like my grandma, you know. And I really just don't want to like have to say something bad to a lady who's over the age of 60. I had to make a lady walk in the rain. It broke my heart. I had to make her walk in the rain and leave the shelter. And that really did. That hurt me. Yeah, but you know, I had to do it because she was in active addiction and doing some things that were really funky, and I didn't want to put her out there, but I had to.
The two things, you got other obstacles. I mean, at the Clark County Jail, you can lock the door and separate men and women, and we don't take kids. You don't have any locked doors, and you have to take kids. That's a big obstacle that you have there, and I understand that. So for you to sit down with a plan and money that I was scared was going to go somewhere that wasn't going to go to a good use, I would echo Mr. Hawkins's comments about it. And if you haven't taken the time to sit down with Pastor Moon, I think he'll answer any questions you have with no political twist to it, or he will be very blunt, and that's what I respect about it.
And what we're trying to do at Catalyst Rescue Mission right now is we're trying to address a problem that's been a long time problem. And then my issue is, if you have input, we're willing to take it. We're not ready for like a grand reopening for everybody to see everything, because it's going to take a long time to get it to where my goal is, if I want to lay my mom's head there, then I don't want to have it there. So that's my goal. If I don't want to lay my mom's head there, we will not have it there. And so I'm getting there, but it's going to take some time, and it does take an investment. Just to give you an example, you know that it takes about $25,000 a month or so to actually run the shelter. Dale Pop gave 30. That money's already gone. It was gone already. Park Memorial's put in almost $200,000. That's before we haven't even closed on the property yet. And that's just to be able to get things to where it's where it needs to be adequate to address the need. It has to be a whole lot different, and hopefully we're breathing that breath of fresh air in there to get it to go that way.
Can I address a couple things about the ordinance? So, and kind of my sense is that you all are in a place where you'd like to vote and you'd like to put this $50,000 in place, utilizing 2009 OR 36, which was Mr. Samuel's ordinance. For you to be able to do this now, you're going to have to get me to write an amendment to the ordinance, because in that language, there was a language that said that at the first council meeting of May and September, the city council will review each document, and there was a attachment for the request for the consideration of the funding. So under the ordinance that I think you kind of referred to, Mr. Hawkins, if it's that way, we need to amend the ordinance. And I'm assuming that the finance department knows better. If you want to put $50,000 into this request and not use the ordinance as your mechanism, you can do it that way.
But you have to repeal it.
Keeping in mind, we've got this ordinance that's going to put us in a place where you're going to have another $50,000 that's going to be eligible for other groups to come in and request in May and September.
Right.
So
For a procedural, from a procedural perspective, there's $50,000 in the budget under the council in edit. It's $50,000.
in the non-reverting fund.
And no, it's $50,000 in the budget. It hasn't been moved to a non-reverting fund.
I apologize.
But we could submit a claim and pay that $50,000 out if that's how the council wanted to move.
There's a slight problem with that, it's budgeted in a transfer out line,
Is it?
which was going to be transferred out to the homeless fund,
Oh, it is.
so it would need to be
It would need to be
transferred
transferred
to
out.
a payable expense line,
Uh-huh.
just like you do with the other ones,
And the other,
like YMCA or
right.
all those others. And then, if you could repeal the
Right.
ordinance, and also the ordinance that established the original fund, because it's not needed.
So what we'll do is an ordinance of additional or a transfer ordinance,
Transfer,
basically.
yes.
That we would reduce it out of that transfer line in
Make it
edit
separate one.
and put it in a separate line that would be just a homeless, I don't know what we would label
Oh,
it.
Haven House.
We could, right, catalyst.
Not Haven
rescue.
House, please, yeah.
Yeah,
Whatever
catalyst.
you're
Catalyst
thinking.
Rescue Mission,
Yes.
CRM,
Call.
please.
Yes, so we'll do that transfer, and at the same time, we'll concurrently repeal the ordinances that established the fund, the non-reverting fund, and repeal the ordinance that established the requirement to do this in May and September. And then we won't have to worry about that anymore. And there won't be a need for a non-reverting fund because we're going to give you the full budget line. Does that make sense?
I would fully support it because I didn't support the ordinance in the beginning, so
Right.
at least we know where the money's going.
Could we,
Yeah.
procedurally, could we do all of that if it's unanimous at one time?
Right now, move to, we'll have to suspend the rule.
It ain't gonna pass.
I don't
I'll
know.
just prepare it for the next meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll prepare it for the next meeting,
That's
and hopefully everybody's on board with this, because if you're not, please take the next 2 weeks and meet with Reverend Moon
Yeah.
and let him convince you, because it's a compelling what they're doing. And that way, when we come back here, we can vote unanimously to suspend the rules and get this process moving, so that he can go to Clarksville and New Albany and say, I've got a check in hand.
Yeah, because that's what I was going to do, because I'm actually starting to meet with New Albany City Council people next week. And I'm going to go down each one. I started that with Jeffersonville, the new folks. I didn't get to everybody, but I'm just letting you know, I'm going to go meet with everyone, explain the business plan of what we're trying to accomplish, and then I'm going to start with the people in Clarksville.
Instead of suspending the rules, can we go ahead and vote on it first and second today and then come back?
For the expenditure, for the, yeah.
And then, so-
Vote on the transfer first and second, and then I'll.
We vote on the transfer first, second, then you're suspending the rules, which has
Yeah, we could.
I think I might give Reverend Moon a message to carry.
Then he
Yeah,
can,
that'd be awesome.
When he
So
goes
we
to see
can-
New Albany, Clarksville.
That would
Yeah.
be good, because I won't have to vote against it. Y'all know how I feel about it.
Well, Mr. Ellis, I stopped talking when I got to the point of suspended.
that's why I think we should
all right,
vote.
well, then, so do we make a motion to, what do I need? How do
Well,
I-
yeah, what's this motion's gotta sound like?
The motion needs to be.
So, I think that you can make a motion to, yeah, what's our next number? You have it close.
One.
One.
One. So I think we can go ahead and top ordinance 2020.
Transfer ordinance, transferring
It'll be R1.
Yes.
R1, the transfer ordinance, transferring $50,000 from which,
From the
From
transfer
the
out
transfer out to
to
the homeless
homeless
fund to, what do you call, what's
Catalyst.
it?
Catalyst
Catalyst.
Rescue Mission.
That's my motion.
Rescue mission.
I
Catalyst
second,
Rescue
I second the motion. Yeah.
No, he asked what the motion had to be.
Yeah, whatever.
It's going to be quicker. The motion, Mr. Maples, second, Mr. Croft. Some,
We know.
first and second.
First and
Correct.
second.
Anything further? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Okay.
We're gonna make a motion to repeal.
You can move to repeal ordinance number 2019 OR 36 on the first and second.
First and second. We'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second, Mr. Hawkins. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We need to repeal the,
And I do not know the non-reverting fund ordinance in number. Do you have that?
You can leave that, right?
we don't have to
We can
do
leave
that.
And then you'll show that OR 2 for 2020 is going to be the motion to ordinance to repeal 36.
And I'll enter all that word change on the month.
Sound fair?
You want the claim to be on the next meeting also? Okay, so then we'll need a W-9, if you don't mind.
That's fine.
So that,
A W-9?
yeah, we still need it so that.
That's fine.
it comes through.
Just send it to the LGIL.
That's fine. And and I also will be providing a full accounting for the whole year, and I can do it quarterly or whatever you like, to the council about how all the money at the shelter is being spent. I don't know if you want it quarterly, once a year, however you like it, you let me know, and that's how I'll do it.
I think an annual report would be sufficient.
Okay?
I appreciate it.
Yep,
And
we'll be
Todd's
getting it.
point that you've got, it only has to pass on one more thing, and it passed unanimously across the board with all Jeffersonville City Council.
I appreciate it. We're doing, this is for the city of Jeff. I like this place. I hope to live here a long time, and this is going to really, really help, I think, solve some of the issues that we've been having. So thank you all.
You and your team are putting in good work, so we
We're doing it.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
God bless you, brother.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is Dustin White. 2020 R1 will be a resolution authorizing an R1.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
Yeah, we are.
A resolution authorizing an investment deduction within the Jeffersonville Urban Enterprise Zone.
Matt, I think if you will go back and look at the records, we passed a resolution that forbid this resolution being brought back up. And I think we would be violating what we had already done.
What was,
I think the resolution said that there would be, that you could not bring this issue back up until after it had been through litigation.
do you know when we made that motion or what the
Was that-
docket number would have been when that took place?
No, but I think a little research could probably find it.
So when I go into the city of Jeffersonville's database and search the
What was the
three-letter
last?
ARC, there's nothing that shows up indicating there was any
There's no resolution.
There
resolution.
wasn't a resolution. I recall there was a vote taken, a motion made not to
Laws.
reconsider, but
Not to
then
reconsider.
again, I haven't been able to, I haven't had my things up to scan in, so
Not to reconsider.
I do not have a resolution in my office at this time, but I'll look again.
I don't personally recall.
There's no resolution.
I don't recall there being anything prohibiting it returning to the table. And this is a new resolution with a new resolution number. This has been defeated twice in the past, or it defeated once and not acted on, or defeated the second time. I don't recall. And I would happily look up the minutes. I keep everything digital if you had an idea of what the docket number was or what even the date was.
I'm not that digital right now.
So my recollection is that the original resolution was defeated.
Correct.
And then the second time that the resolution was brought before the council.
I thought it was not considered.
defeated.
Was it defeated?
Yes, and then the third time it died for lack of a second.
Okay. Yes.
That's the
Yes,
correct
you are correct.
Thank you.
I do remember that. Now that you mention it, there was a lack of a second.
Died for the lack of a second.
But I don't remember when that was to confirm it with the minutes. We could certainly do that at some point.
I'm sorry? Yeah, so, yeah, it's the resolution for the UAZ tax credit for Spring and Market, for 22 apartments, 3 businesses. This has been approved by the Historic Board. All approvals have been had, and so, having said that, not to talk it to death, I move that we approve Resolution 2020 R1.
Is there a motion?
Yes.
Is there a second?
I'll second it, I supported it in the beginning.
So there's a motion and a second. I'm going to open this up for any council comments. I do have one public comment that's down to speak on this matter before we take a vote. So,
Roll call also.
for a roll call vote? Okay, when that time comes. I'll call Deborah Henderson to the podium. She signed up for public comment. As a reminder, public comment allows for 3 minutes. If you would say your name and your address for the record, and Mr. Wilder will keep your time after you've said your address.
Ready?
You're not going to rate Henderson, if you would.
All right. Deborah K. Henderson, 222 Meigs Avenue. I'm here concerning the investment deduction on the agenda. Those opposed to the project are not against progress. We're not short-sighted. Rather, we're looking at the long game, and our concerns have not changed. The project itself, lack of design. This form of commercial property is duplicated throughout Kentuckiana because it's cheaper to build. Even though it's in the historic district, there's not going to be a future outcry from preservationists in order to save it. The tenants, with a rent starting at $850 for 600 square feet, they need to make between $35,000 and $40,000 a year, and with no elevator to reach the apartments on the second and third floor, they have to be physically fit. Parking. Is this site conducive to a multi-residence building? Those selling the project have repeatedly stated that there's a parking surplus in the downtown area, but they didn't say where. Presumably, this is from a 2014 study that concluded that Jeffersonville was looking at a parking shortage in the near future, a busy block of concern, Spring, between Market and Chestnut. Mayor Moore stated that we may need to explore the need for parking garages. Another concern has been the process. There was a specially called meeting of the JUEA board to vote on this project. Perhaps coincidentally, 3 members of the board were unable to attend. Proxy votes had been allowed in the past, but the chair, when asked, stated that is not how the board now operates. Mr. Muncy in the 2-hour historic preservation meeting said if he didn't get their approval for the project, he'd have to think twice about future renovations and investments. ARC, with the help of substantial financial incentives, has chosen to take calculated risks in Jeffersonville. However, this was not a charitable endeavor. It was to make a profit. Last but certainly not least, why, I ask, is this on tonight's agenda? Mr. White's actions while serving as the former chairperson of the JUEA contributed to a lawsuit concerning this property, a lawsuit that is still before the courts. That process must reach a conclusion before you, the council, can be asked or expected to vote. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll open up for council comment. There is a motion and a second. If there is any council comment. If not, there was a request for a roll call vote. Ms. Gill?
Councilperson White.
Aye.
Councilperson Burns.
Aye.
Councilperson Paris.
Aye.
Councilperson Maples.
Aye.
Councilperson Croft.
Aye.
Councilperson Webb.
Aye.
Councilperson Owen.
Aye.
Councilperson Hawkins.
No.
Councilperson Ellis.
No.
Let the reflection show that there were 7 councilpersons voted yes and 2 against.
Okay.
Motion.
Motion passes. Attorney comments?
So in all seriousness, which I'm not always serious, I appreciate the opportunity to do this again for another year. And I respect and appreciate the fact that the new members have been so quick to participate, and that the not so new but new member, Mr. Webb, has his experience that he brings to everyone. And just thank you, and hopefully we'll have as many times in the next 2 years that I don't have to say anything as we had before.
Are there any department heads here who would like to speak? I don't see any. Other public comment? I have Mary Jo Carrico.
My name is Mary Jo Carrico, and I've lived for 16 years at 217 West Market Street. My Rose Hill neighbors and I love Jeffersonville. After the Big Four Station Park was completed, we had no choice but to voice our concerns regarding the unfair noise enforcement. Mayor Mike Moore and Council Dustin White ignored us regarding our pleas for help. Our next option was to come before the City Council, which we did on July 1st, 2019. A decision was made towards solving the problems. A new noise ordinance committee was formed to initiate replacing the old one to better serve all of Jeffersonville. The next Monday, after the City Council meeting, I decided not to walk over to the Big Four Station Park and to ask the Zumba instructor if she could adjust the speakers as I did every week prior. I always stood at the side of the stage and spoke loudly my request, whereby her reply included a reason not to honor it. Instead, my husband Bill went over. By the time he got to the stage, which is a block from our house, it was way too loud. Fed up, he went on the stage to get closer to the instructor since he had to yell to be heard. My husband is a decorated 20-year Army retiree who is also a cancer survivor with special needs. He never had trouble with the law in his 65 years, never. In case you didn't know, Bill was arrested and taken to jail overnight and released the next day. Then we learned Mike Moore admitted to the newspaper he was lying in wait with the police on standby for me to come over. Of course, we disputed the charges, and they have been dropped. We are fearful that Mike Moore will abuse his power again if we speak out publicly. My neighbors are also intimidated. Sometime last summer, Dustin White placed a post promoting himself on the Rose Hill Neighborhood Facebook page. My husband Bill is secretary of the board, and they went back and forth about the post and the fact that Dustin was invited twice to our meetings and stood us up both times. Recently, on Friday, December 27th, I came down the stairs in City Hall. I greeted Matt Owen and Scott Maple standing near the bottom of the steps, one on either side of me. I took the opportunity to ask Matt if he would call me back if I left a message on his phone. He wondered why, so I asked him, since he's an at-large council member, would he represent us in Rose Hill? Matt's reply included that he heard I said the downtown is being neglected. I said that is right, that noise enforcement is a quality of life issue. I asked both Matt and Scott if they knew anything about the status of the new noise ordinance. They both quickly said no. Just then, Dustin White walked around from behind Matt to stand directly in front of me a few feet away. I acknowledged Dustin. I said that I left a message for him, and he called me back. He informed me he could do nothing about the noise enforcement. Dustin immediately voiced opposition to my statement, so I asked him to clarify what he thought transpired. Dustin's voice became loud as he pointed his finger at me and began to yell about how rude my husband was to him on Facebook. He would not stop yelling. I tried to get the words out. I was asking about the noise ordinance, and then he was on the committee. He was verbally abusive, and I walked away upset. I heard Dustin White interfered with the new noise ordinance process and dismantled it. Can we please get back to completing this important task and not allow this abuse of power and intimidation tactics by people in positions in government? And I had a little bit more. I want the City Council to know that Bill and I have been traumatized by the abuse of power and intimidation tactics inflicted with impunity. Yes, I just had one more sentence. Yes. It's nice that you follow ordinances. I'd like a noise ordinance too, and more respect.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ms. Carrico, if you have a written statement you'd like to leave for the record, you're welcome to do that.
Okay.
We've seen no other public comment. We'll go into council comment. Mr. White.
Happy New Year, everybody. It's looking forward to the next 4 years and all the things we can do for the betterment of the city.
Happy New Year. Looking forward to serving for 4 years here on the council. Can you confirm the next meeting date? Because I heard you talk about it changed, so it's on the Tuesday?
Well, that's for you all to decide, but the next meeting does fall on Martin Luther King's.
Are we meeting on the Monday or the?
Tuesday is traditionally.
It's traditionally Tuesday, the Tuesday after.
Monday holiday.
21st.
Yes.
Is that the,
Tuesday, January 21st.
is that the week of the AIM conference?
Yes.
So I know you're going to be gone. Are any other council members going up to that?
I'll be gone.
You're going to go up to that? Are there any others?
So we're not going,
Pardon
we
me?
get you registered.
Yes, I am, sorry.
Okay,
But I'll be there Wednesday, I'm not going to be there Tuesday.
okay. Just want to make sure we have a quorum. So have we already advertised that?
So that was going to be my question.
Don't hold me to this, but I believe the one that our department holds, sends out in January says that a council meeting falls on a holiday that's,
The Tuesday following?
I believe so.
So can we just
If not-
confirm that?
If not, we'll make sure it's advertised.
Okay. So the Tuesday.
And last comment, prior to the next meeting, can you send out an updated list of the council appointments?
Absolutely.
Anything else?
No, sir.
Mr. Harris?
Yes, I want to explain my decision on the ARC because it is it changed my vote. When I came in, I started in June. This vote was done in May, so it was voted down in May. So when I started, there was a lawsuit, and it got voted down. And there was a question as to transparency at the UEZ. Since then, we have addressed the UEZ and tried everything we can do to improve that transparency and change some of the rules that I felt good with. This is a tough decision. I try to look at the bigger picture, and to me, with the litigation and everything else, it was just going to, it's a complete mess, and so I'm going to do everything I can to prevent this, in the future, whatever I can do, but it was a hard vote, but that's my thinking. Thank you.
Mr. Maples?
Productive first meeting. Look forward to working with all the new council members and the ones that were before. Congratulations to Ms. Gill on her new job, Ms. Hardway, and happy birthday, Larry, a couple days ago. So,
Made it to another year, so with it down with it.
Yeah.
Mr. Croft?
Yeah, I'd just like to say Happy New Year to everybody. I hope this next 4 years is productive, and mostly it's an honor for me to be here. I'm going to work diligently and as hard as I possibly can to do good the next 4 years. Thank you.
Mr. Webb?
I'd like to bring up the vote also too on the ARC. I hate to have that come as on the first meeting. I know this all started back last year in May, but after looking at the numbers, I'm a numbers guy, and with cost and litigation, time frame, that piece of property ever since I've been alive has been vacant. It could go out another 7 years, guys. We might not get as good a deal in 7 years, and the way I look at it, if it's 10 years, we'll be paying the full tax rate. So I had concern with it. I wasn't too happy with my vote, but I felt number-wise I had to go that way, and overall, the city-wise, I think it's going to be beneficial for the city money-wise. But Happy New Year. I look forward to working with the new council. God bless everyone.
Mr. Hawkins?
A couple things. One, I'd like for us, whoever wants to take this on, maybe the legal minds that we have with us, I'd like to address like the rules to be more clear in a public way as to what the rules are about how we can have a meeting, who can call a meeting, because at the end of this last cycle, there was kind of a train wreck that happened, and it didn't look like that we knew what we were doing when we were just following legal counsel. So at some point, I'd like for some of us to kind of get together and kind of clarify so everybody kind of knows what the rules are about when we can have those meetings. So at some point, I'll get in touch with you about each one of that. Second, I need to give her pen back.
Oh, yes.
And third, I'm glad everybody made it on the council. I mean, win or lose when you run for something, it's a big step to set your life aside to try to do right for the community. I want to work with every one of you, whatever we can get accomplished. One of my favorite quotes is from Jefferson's inaugural, and the names are different, but it's the same. You know, you might have got as elected as a Republican or a Democrat, but Jefferson said, we're all Republicans, we're all Federalists now. So now we just got to do what's best for the city and put all that stuff behind us, and I hope to look forward to work with everyone. Thank you.
Mr. Ellis?
Yes, along with working out when we can have meetings or who can call meetings, I would also like it addressed just how many times that we can bring the same situation back up before the council. I mean, we brought one situation up 4 times before the council before it was finally passed. As it stands right now, we can just bring a situation up an unlimited amount of times until it's finally passed, until somebody can convince you that to vote a different way than what you normally do. I hope that we can put this in our minutes so we can follow what our minutes say, because we have not lived up to what the citizens of Jeffersonville would really expect us. When we are doing some things, yes, we go look at what it was, but it's not being taken care of the way it should have been. And any time that one single person can do something that makes the whole city, or this council, the JUEA, or any other board responsible for the actions of which it happened, or what happened, then we need to take a good look at what our rules and regulations are, because not only are we hurting ourselves, but we're hurting the citizens of Jeffersonville. And there's going to be quite a few citizens of Jeffersonville that are not happy with what has transpired. I voted no from the beginning because of what I've seen. I voted no tonight, and in the upcoming year, I hope it's not as many times that I have to vote no, but if I don't think it's right, I'm going to vote no. You know, if it got stripes like a skunk, it smells like a skunk, and it walks like a skunk, I'm going to vote on it like it is a skunk. That's all I have.
Okay. I have a few things. First, you'll see in some of your handouts that the Finance Department has provided a 12-line statement for January, I believe, but then also several end-of-the-year statements, financial statements, that lays out what the circuit breakers were for last year, where we ended up last year, and also there's even an investment list, a master bank list, that shows that the Finance Department invested public money out of the general fund, I think, to yield over $1.1 million in interest for the city, and then invested other assets of the city through wastewater and redevelopment. I think over $2.1 or $2.2 million in interest was earned just by the diligence of your department, looking at those investments and what would be the best moves on behalf of taxpayers. So I wanted to thank you for that.
November's too, we don't have December's.
Oh, it's not even all inclusive. It's just through November. So.
Remember that number, council, when we're cutting into the surplus we have. Remember that. But go.
Right. $2 million is quite a return. Also, I had sent out an email asking if anybody would like business cards made so we can get those ordered all at once. I got a return from Mr. Burns and Mr. Croft. If there's anybody else, please let me know tonight so I can forward that on to Ms. Gill, and we'll get those taken care of.
They need to give you their information.
Right. And also, we're going to have an opportunity to order any type of city wear, a shirt, jacket, that type of thing. Mr. Croft's a little ahead of the game. He got his in early. But we'll order those too. If you're interested in that, let me know, and we'll get the options to you. Every 4 years, this is a third for me, so I've noticed this happens. There's always a question on if we want to adjust the time that we meet. It's been 7 p.m. for at least the last 6 or 7 years. But it has been as early as 6, it's been 6:30. Does 7 work for everyone? I know that department heads who are here all day on Mondays would probably appreciate doing something a little bit earlier, but it's at our discretion. I would prefer not to do 6 o'clock because if we have to meet prior, that cuts into the workday, and some of us work, almost all of us work, I think now, with few exceptions. It might not be as easy to move our schedules around before the end of the workday. But if there's a desire to change the start time of the council meeting, I'm sure everybody else would be open to that or appreciative of that. Or we can keep it the same. We don't have to do that right now.
6 o'clock. I make a motion, we change to 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock?
Mhm.
Okay.
No, I think we need to discuss that, because I really...
We could change that at any point.
Yeah.
We don't have to do it tonight, but it's something to think about. There was a motion unless you rescind that.
I'll rescind the motion to the next meeting.
Okay, we'll talk about it again next time.
So the next meeting is Tuesday, January 24th, 7 p.m.
Still at 7, yes, but we'll talk about it. Tuesday's meeting we talked about. I had on here rules committee to talk about, and it's been echoed a couple times. I really think we need to get at least 4 of us together and talk about hammering out some rules to govern ourselves, because there's quotes of, do we follow Robert's rules or not? And yes over here and no over there, and that conversation has happened way too much in the last 12 months. Mr. Hawkins and Mr. Ellis have already spoke on it. I think that if you guys would be willing, and then somebody, one other, with myself, Mr. Maples. Okay, so the 4 of us will connect, and we're going to work with Mr. Wilder to see what's established in ordinance, what's established in statute, and put all those things in one document and make sure that we know how we're going to operate. And it has to do with calling meetings, who can call meetings, and it has to do with how much notice needs to be given. We took some action tonight that wasn't on the agenda. Personally, I don't feel that's proper, but I understand why we did it, because he needs to, get that process moving. But I think we need to lay all those things out. I've been on the council in the majority and in the minority. When you're a minority council member and someone hands you something and says, here, vote on this 30-page document right now, it's not a fun feeling. So we need to make sure that we're holding ourselves accountable and we're transparent with the public. Contract negotiations, we need to put that team together. Police and fire contracts are up this year for renegotiation with the administration, the council, and the respective unions. I don't know if anybody's jumping to volunteer.
I'll be on it.
Mr. White? Mr. Hawkins has extensive experience. He's probably the most experienced given his day job. And I know you did it last time.
I think everybody needs a chance. But we'll talk about it.
We need your
When's
leadership.
that got to be done by? When do we have to?
Not today.
It doesn't have to be done today, but we need to think about it. And the quicker we can jump on that and get it out of the way, the better off we'll be for the departments, the city, to know where everybody's going to land.
Mr. Hawkins is a veteran.
He is a veteran. He is. He did, not with the, just with the city. And I know Mr. Burns had an endorsement or so the last time too. So there's plenty of qualifiers to get put on this committee to negotiate.
It sounds like you're wanting to be on there. You're selling it so hard.
Yeah. The only other thing, I wanted to welcome Corporal Lyden, who's in the back of the room. He's going to be with us through our council meetings. Thank you for being here. We appreciate you. Captain Moreland, who was here for us through the last several years, retired this past week after 32 years of dedication to the city of Jeffersonville. So we thank him and we welcome Corporal Lyden. Anything else?
There's one thing I would like to suggest, that maybe we can give Captain Moreland a plaque recognizing his service to the.
Sure, yeah, we can definitely look at that. Anything else? There's a motion to adjourn.